Paso there I was, Kira Velthar, elite warrior of the Solarian 7th Fleet, bleeding out in a crater on some backwater planet called Kepler 442 billion. A real inspiring name, right? Nothing says die with honor like expiring on a rock named after some ancient human mathematician. The battle had been going so well too. We ex-Solarians, with our beautiful crystalline skin and superior tactical training, were supposed to crush the Zephyrite coalition in a matter of hours. Instead, those blue-skinned freaks had somehow outmaneuvered us using, and I kid you not, actual strategy. The nerve. Now here I was, watching my life essence leak out through a gash in my torso that definitely wasn't covered in warrior training. My thermal regulation was failing, my combat suit was more holes than fabric, and I could feel my consciousness fading like a dying star. Very poetic for someone who'd spent the last decade turning enemies into decorative glass sculptures. The local wildlife seemed to think I was already dead. A pack of something that looked like purple wolves with too many teeth circled my crater, probably debating whether Solarian warrior tastes better medium rare or well done. Behind them I could make out the scavenger birds, patient as accountants, waiting for the main course to finish so they could pick at the leftovers. Great. After 300 years of military service, I was going to become alien bird food on a planet whose main export was probably disappointment. That's when I heard the footsteps. Heavy, clumsy, definitely not Solarian. The purple wolf things scattered like teenagers when the lights come on. Through my fading vision, I saw a figure approaching, and my heart sank. It was one of them. A human. Oh, perfect. Just perfect. Of all the species in the galaxy to witness my final moments, it had to be from the newest, most backward civilization to stumble into space. They'd only figured out faster than light travel about 50 years ago, and here was one of their kind, probably lost and looking for a bathroom. The human knelt beside me, and I got my first close look at one of Earth's finest. Male, average height for their species, with short brown hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He was wearing some kind of military uniform, but it was so casual compared to our formal battle dress that he might as well have been wearing pajamas. He looked down at me with what I'd learned was typical human concern, but completely ignoring the fact that I was a member of a species that had been at war with his allies for the past 6 months. Then he did something that would change everything. He smiled. Me. Not the predatory grin of a warrior about to finish off an enemy. Not the cold satisfaction of victory. Just a simple, genuine smile that somehow made the pain in my chest feel a little less significant. "Hey there," he said in accented but clear galactic standard. "You look like you've had a rough day. Don't worry, you're safe now." Safe. What a concept. I wanted to laugh, but I was pretty sure that would accelerate my death by at least 10 minutes. Here I was, dying on an alien world, surrounded by hostile wildlife, in the middle of a war zone, and this human was telling me I was The absolute audacity of it was almost refreshing. "Okay, let's see what we're working with here," the human muttered, pulling out what looked like a medical kit designed by someone who'd never seen actual medical equipment. Multiple lacerations, possible internal bleeding, definitely some kind of crystalline skin structure I've never seen before. Just another Tuesday in paradise. He worked with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this before, but his methods were completely insane. Instead of using proper medical scanners, he was actually touching me with his bare hands, feeling for injuries like some kind of primitive healer. "Name's Jake Martinez, by the way," he said, pulling out a device that looked like it belonged in a museum. "Combat medic, 3rd Human Expeditionary Force. And you are one seriously banged-up crystal lady." I tried to speak, but only managed a weak hiss. My vocal cords weren't cooperating, which was probably for the best, since I'd been about to insult his parentage. "Yeah, don't try to talk yet," Jake said, somehow reading my expression. "I'm going to do something that's either going to save your life or give you a really interesting story to tell in the afterlife. Fair warning, this might feel weird." He pressed some kind of foam applicator against my wounds, and I felt the strangest sensation. Instead of the clean, precise healing of our medical technology, this was messy, chaotic, and completely wrong. It was also working better than anything in our medical database. The thing about human medicine, Jake continued conversationally, as if we were discussing the weather instead of my imminent death, is that we don't really understand how it works half the time. We just throw stuff at problems until they go away. Very scientific. That's when Commander Vex showed up. Martinez. The voice boomed across the crater like an angry god with a megaphone. What in the seven hells are you doing? I managed to turn my head enough to see Jake's expression shift from casual concern to the universal look of someone who'd just been caught doing something they definitely shouldn't be doing. Oh, hey, Commander, Jake called back, not stopping his work on my wounds. Just, saving a life. Tuesday stuff. Commander Vex stomped into view, and I got my first look at a Draknari officer. 8 feet tall, covered in scales that looked like they'd been polished with military precision, and currently wearing an expression that suggested Jake was about to become a very short human. That is a Solarian warrior, Martinez, and an enemy combatant. Military protocol clearly states that we provide medical aid to wounded regardless of species or affiliation, Jake finished smoothly. Article 7 of the Galactic Medical Convention. I read the manual, Commander. Most of it. The important parts. The commander's tail twitched in what I'd learned was the Draknari equivalent of a stress response. The important parts do not include adopting enemy soldiers as pets, Martinez. Good thing I'm not adopting her then, Jake replied, helping me sit up. Just patching her up so she can go back to trying to kill us later. It's called job security. I found myself being lifted by Jake's surprisingly strong arms as he started walking toward what looked like a medical facility. The casual way he'd just picked up a fully grown Solarian warrior was either impressive or terrifying. Possibly both. Martinez, if you take one more step. You'll what? Court-martial me? Sir, with respect, half the command structure got vaporized in the last attack. I'm pretty sure the paperwork alone would take longer than this war. Commander Vex's roar of frustration followed us all the way to the medical bay. As Jake carried me through corridors that looked like they'd been designed by someone who'd never heard of efficiency, I found myself studying his face. There was something about humans that was completely different from every other species I'd encountered. They seemed to find everything simultaneously amusing and annoying, like the universe was one big joke that they were in on. Almost there, Jake said, noticing my examination. Try not to die on me, okay? I've already got enough paperwork to fill a small moon. Jake's medical bay looked like a disaster had mated with a garage sale and produced something that barely qualified as a medical facility. Equipment was scattered everywhere, nothing matched, and I was pretty sure that wasn't supposed to be sparking. Welcome to my domain, Jake announced, setting me down on what he optimistically called an examination table. Don't let the appearance fool you. It's much worse than it looks. He was right. As he started connecting various devices to monitor my vital signs, I realized that human medical technology was at least 2 centuries behind galactic standard. What they lacked in sophistication, however, they apparently made up for in sheer stubborn determination. Okay, so here's the thing, Jake said, pulling up a holographic display that flickered like a dying star. I've never treated a Solarian before. Hell, I've never even seen one up close. But I've got a theory about crystalline life forms and healing, and you're going to be my test subject. Lucky you. Before I could protest, he activated something that looked like a modified sonic shower, and suddenly my entire body felt like it was vibrating at exactly the right frequency. The pain in my chest began to fade, replaced by a warm, tingling sensation that was actually pleasant. How? I managed to croak out, my voice finally working again. Resonance therapy, Jake said proudly. Figured if your skin is crystalline, it probably responds to specific frequencies. Just had to find the right one. Took me about 15 minutes and 3 different settings. The first 2 might have killed you, but hey, third time's the charm. That's when Pip materialized. Literally. One moment there was empty space, the next there was a small, blue holographic figure bouncing around like an excited child. Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow, Pip squealed. A real live Solarian. Jake, can we keep her? Please? I promise I'll feed her and walk her and. Pip, she's not a pet, Jake said patiently. She's a person. Probably. I mean, she talks, so that's a good sign. I am Kira Vel-Thar, warrior of the 7th Fleet, I said, trying to maintain some dignity while lying on a table that was clearly held together with tape and hope. Kira. What a pretty name. Pip bounced over to hover near my face. I'm Pip. I'm Jake's AI assistant. Well, I'm supposed to be his AI assistant, but mostly I just malfunction at inconvenient times and make inappropriate comments. Pip has a slight personality disorder, Jake explained. The programmers thought it would be funny to give an AI a sense of humor. Turns out AI humor is mostly just chaos with a laugh track. As if to prove his point, Pip suddenly glitched, his form fragmenting into geometric shapes for a moment before reassembling. Did someone say chaos? I love chaos. It's like order, but fun. I stared at this bizarre pair, trying to process what I was seeing. In Solarian culture, everything was precise, ordered, purposeful. These humans seemed to operate on a completely different principle, where improvisation and controlled madness were not just acceptable, but preferred. Your medical techniques are primitive, I said, though without the venom I'd intended. It came out more like confusion than insult. Primitive? Jake laughed. Lady. You. We've been practicing medicine for thousands of years. We've tried everything from leeches to laser surgery. You know what we learned? Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. Your fancy medical tech probably would have analyzed you to death while trying to find the perfect treatment. But the precision is overrated, Jake finished. Look, I don't know how your people do things, but humans figured out a long time ago that life is messy. The more you try to control it, the more it fights back. So we learn to work with the chaos instead of against it. He gestured to his medical bay, where nothing was where it should be, but somehow everything was exactly where he needed it. This looks like disaster, but I can find anything in here in under 10 seconds. Your perfectly organized medical facility would probably take me 20 minutes just to locate a bandage. I had to admit there was a certain logic to it. A completely insane logic, but logic nonetheless. Besides, Jake added with a grin, if my methods are so primitive, why are you feeling better? I was. The pain had almost completely faded, my energy was returning, and I could feel my natural healing processes kicking in. It should have been impossible, but somehow this human had accomplished in an hour what our advanced medical technology would have taken days to achieve. I don't understand, I admitted. That's okay, Jake said. Neither do we most of the time. That's what makes it fun. The proximity alarm started screaming just as I was beginning to feel almost normal again. Jake's casual expression immediately shifted to something more serious, though he still looked like he was enjoying himself. Well, that's not good, he said, checking his instruments. We've got incoming. Big, fast, and very unfriendly. Pip flickered excitedly. Ooh, visitors. Should I put on tea? I love tea. Well, I can't drink tea, but I love the concept of tea. Pip, scan for life signs and ship configuration, Jake ordered, suddenly all business. The AI's form stabilized as he accessed the facility's sensors. One ship, Zephyrite configuration, single occupant. Oh, and Jake? He's got some really big guns, like compensating for something big. My blood turned to ice. Thane, friend of yours? Jake asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Zephyrite bounty hunter, I explained, trying to sit up. He's been tracking me for months. He won't stop until he collects whatever price is on your head, Jake finished. Yeah, I figured. Well, this should be interesting. The way he said it made it sound like he was looking forward to the challenge. I was beginning to think all humans were clinically insane. Jake, you don't understand, I said urgently. Thane isn't just any bounty hunter. He's enhanced. Military-grade cybernetics, neural implants, weapons systems that could level a city block. He's basically a walking weapon designed specifically to hunt down warriors like me. Sounds scary, Jake said, checking his sidearm with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Good thing I'm not a warrior like you. Before I could ask what he meant, the facility's main door exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris stepped something that looked like it had been designed by a committee of nightmares. Thane stood 7 feet tall, his blue zephyrite skin covered in cybernetic implants that pulsed with energy. His left arm had been replaced entirely with a weapon system that looked like it could punch holes through starship hulls. His eyes glowed with targeting systems that probably cost more than most planets' defense budgets. Kira Velthar, he said in a voice like grinding metal. You have led me on quite the chase. But it ends now. Actually, Jake said, stepping between us, I think it's just getting started. Thane's targeting systems locked onto Jake, and I saw the bounty hunter's expression shift from professional focus to confused irritation. Human, you are not my target. Stand aside. Yeah, that's not going to happen, Jake replied cheerfully. See, the lady's under my protection now, and I take that kind of thing seriously. Your protection? Thane's laugh sounded like a garbage disposal having a seizure. You are an inferior species with primitive technology. I could eliminate you without engaging my primary systems. Probably, Jake agreed. But here's the thing about us inferior species. We don't fight fair. That's when Jake did something that defied every tactical manual ever written. He smiled, pulled out what looked like a standard-issue sidearm and shot out the lights. The medical bay plunged into darkness, and suddenly Thane's technological advantages became liabilities. His enhanced vision systems were designed for optimal lighting conditions, and his targeting computers were having trouble adjusting to the sudden change. Pip, Jake called out. Emergency Lighting Protocol 7. Which one is Protocol 7? Pip asked, his voice coming from everywhere at once. The one where you make everything as confusing as possible. The facility's emergency lighting system activated, but instead of providing steady illumination, it began strobing in random patterns. Red, blue, green, ultraviolet, colors that made it impossible to get a clear visual on anything. Thane roared in frustration, his weapon systems firing at shadows while Jake moved through the chaos like he'd been born in it. I watched in amazement as this supposedly primitive human used the environment itself as a weapon, turning every piece of equipment, every corner, every reflection into part of his strategy. This is impossible. Thane snarled, his shots going wide as Jake led him on a chase through the medical bay. You cannot defeat superior technology with chaos. Watch me, Jake called back, and I heard something that sounded like laughter. He was actually enjoying this. What followed was the most insane tactical display I'd ever witnessed. Jake didn't fight Thane so much as he annoyed him to death. Every time the bounty hunter thought he'd cornered his target, Jake would do something completely unexpected. He'd slide under tables, leap over equipment, and use Thane's own weapon blast to destroy support columns, causing sections of the ceiling to collapse in strategic locations. Stand still and fight. Thane roared, his weapon system cycling through different configurations as he tried to adapt to Jake's unpredictable movements. Why would I do that? Jake called back, using a medical scanner as a makeshift mirror to see around corners. That would be fair, and I already told you, humans don't fight fair. He grabbed what looked like a container of medical supplies and hurled it at Thane. The bounty hunter's automated defense systems activated, vaporizing the container instantly. The explosion of medical foam covered Thane's optical sensors, temporarily blinding him. "Pip," Jake shouted. "Play something annoying." Suddenly, the facility's speakers began blasting what I could only describe as the most irritating music ever created. It sounded like someone had fed a garbage disposal a symphony orchestra and asked it to sing. "What is this noise?" Thane demanded, his enhanced hearing making the experience even more torturous. "Earth music," Jake replied. Genre called experimental jazz fusion. It's designed to cause psychological damage. I had to admit, it was working. Thane's movements became increasingly erratic as he tried to block out the sound while maintaining his pursuit. His cybernetic systems, designed for optimal performance, were being overwhelmed by sensory input they couldn't process or categorize. That's when Jake made his move. While Thane was distracted by the cacophony, Jake grabbed what looked like a standard medical defibrillator and modified it with spare parts from his equipment. I watched in horrified fascination as he essentially turned life-saving equipment into a weapon. "Only humans would weaponize medical equipment," I muttered. "Only humans would think to," Jake corrected, creeping up behind Thane. "That's why we're special." He activated the modified defibrillator and pressed it against Thane's cybernetic implants. The result was spectacular. Every enhanced system in the bounty hunter's body began shorting out at once, sparks flying from his implants as his cybernetics overloaded. "Impossible." Thane screamed, his weapon arm sparking and smoking. "You cannot defeat superior technology with." Controlled chaos, Jake finished, grinning as Thane collapsed to the floor, his systems shutting down one by one. "Yeah, you mentioned that. Thing is, superior technology has a weakness. It's predictable. It follows rules. It makes sense." He gestured to the destroyed medical bay around us, where nothing was where it should be, but somehow everything had worked exactly as planned. "Humans? We specialize in not making sense. We're chaos specialists. We look at your perfectly ordered systems and ask, what if we just broke everything?" Thane tried to stand, but his cybernetic legs were offline. He looked up at Jake with what I recognized as the universal expression of someone whose entire worldview had just been shattered. "You should not have been able to defeat me," he said weakly. "Yeah, well," Jake shrugged, "should is a funny word. According to the laws of physics, bumblebees shouldn't be able to fly. According to military doctrine, my medical bay shouldn't be defensible. According to common sense, I shouldn't have tried to fight you at all." He knelt down to Thane's level, still smiling that completely inappropriate smile.
"But here's the thing about humans, we don't let things like impossibility stop us. We just find a way to make it work anyway."
I realized I was staring at both of them with a completely new understanding. This wasn't just about superior technology versus primitive methods. This was about two completely different philosophies of existence, and somehow the chaotic one had won. "Besides," Jake added, standing up and brushing off his uniform, "you made one critical mistake." "What?" Thane asked weakly. "You threatened someone under my protection. And humans take that kind of thing very personally." 3 hours later, Thane was securely contained in what Jake optimistically called a holding cell but looked more like a storage closet with extra locks. The bounty hunter was awake but thoroughly defeated, his cybernetic systems slowly rebooting under Pip's cheerful supervision. "So," Jake said, offering me what appeared to be coffee but smelled like it could strip paint, "how are you feeling?" "Confused," I admitted. "Everything I was taught about humans suggested you were barely capable of space travel, let alone whatever that was." "Yeah, that's kind of the point," Jake said, settling into a chair that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts. We've found that being underestimated is actually pretty useful. While everyone else is busy building bigger weapons and better armor, we're over here figuring out how to make medical equipment explode. I had to laugh. It was either that or have a complete psychological breakdown, and I'd already had enough of those for one day. Your entire species is insane, I said, but without malice. It was almost admiring. Thank you, Jake replied, taking it as a compliment. We prefer creatively unhinged, but insane works too. Pip materialized between us, practically vibrating with excitement. Oh, this is so great. We're like a family now. A weird, dysfunctional family that solves problems by breaking things. Pip, we're not a family, Jake said patiently. We're not. We're a team. There's a difference. What's the difference? Teams get paid. I found myself smiling at their exchange. There was something infectious about their casual approach to everything, like they'd decided that if life was going to be complicated, they might as well enjoy it. So what happens now? I asked.
Well, Jake said, technically, I'm supposed to turn you over to command for debriefing. But seeing as how you're technically a refugee under medical protection, and I'm technically the senior medical officer of this facility, I think we can work something out.
Work something out? You know things, Jake said seriously. About Solarian military tactics, technology, culture. And after today, I think you might have some insights about human capabilities that could be useful. I considered this. He was right. I'd learned more about human potential in the last few hours than my entire species had managed in 50 years of conflict. You want me to become a consultant? I want you to help us end this war, Jake said simply. Not through superior firepower or better tactics, but through understanding. Your people and mine are fighting because we don't understand each other. Maybe it's time to change that. The idea was radical, unprecedented, completely against everything I'd been trained to believe about military protocol and species loyalty. It was also the most sensible thing I'd heard in months. The Solarian High Command will consider me a traitor, I said. Probably, Jake agreed. But they already left you to die, so I'm not sure their opinion matters much. He had a point. A harsh, brutally accurate point. Besides, Jake added with that infectious grin, think of it this way, you'll be helping to introduce the galaxy to humanity's greatest weapon. Which is our complete inability to do anything the way we're supposed to. I laughed again, and realized that I hadn't felt this, hopeful in years. Not since before the war started, before everything became about tactics and victory and survival. You know, I said, when I woke up this morning I thought I was going to die on a battlefield, forgotten and alone. And instead I met the most insane human in the galaxy and apparently joined his team of professional chaos specialists. Hey now, Jake protested, I'm probably only the third most insane human in the galaxy. You haven't met my commanding officer yet.
There are humans more insane than you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm practically normal compared to some of them. That thought was simultaneously terrifying and oddly comforting. So, I said, raising the cup of paint stripper coffee in a mock toast, to new beginnings and controlled chaos. To new beginnings, Jake agreed, raising his own cup, and the universal truth that if you can't solve a problem with superior technology, you can probably solve it by breaking things in creative ways. That's not a universal truth, I pointed out. It is for humans, Jake replied. And as of today, you're an honorary human. Welcome to the team, Kira. Try not to let it drive you completely insane. Too late for that, I said, and meant it. Outside, the war continued. Ships fought in the void, soldiers died on distant worlds, and politicians made speeches about honor and victory. But inside Jake's chaotic medical bay, surrounded by broken equipment, and the gentle hum of Pip's malfunctioning systems, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. I felt safe. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally home.